Hey guys, Zach Greenwald here with Strength Ratio, and we're introducing our first video of our sustainable training series, and we're going to be talking about weightlifting as our first sport. We're going to open it up with the macro, and then we're going to focus the rest of our attention, the majority of our attention in this video, on the accumulation phase. Now, with a macro cycle in mind, we're trying to optimize results. So you don't have to be someone who's training for nationals or the American Open or any other type of sanctioned meet to peak. You can be someone who's just trying to maximize your best results, a garage gym warrior who wants to see their improvements go up to their best abilities in their total, and that's why we are going to have a chat about this idea of periodization. And that's what this is here. This is not one line with an end. Instead, this is a cycle that we're going to repeat time and time again. Now, accumulation is what we begin with a cycle, and it features high volume, that's what the V will stand for, with low specificity. And in the case of weightlifting, we're obviously talking about snatch and clean and jerk from the floor, 3 attempts. Whereas the peaking is the actual competition, your volume is very low, and your specificity is very high. As we go down this scale, volume decreases as specificity increases. Just bear that in mind. The accumulation phase comes after the peaking. Like I said, it's a cycle. So you've just peaked and you're pretty exhausted, both physically and mentally. We're gonna open fresh with this block. We're gonna talk about it more in detail here, both general characteristics and weightlifting specific considerations. After our accumulation phase, we go into a hypertrophy phase. The volume is still high. We're trying to put on muscle mass in areas that need it most to make us better weightlifters. We're also still improving technique due to the high volume. We have the time to put in good technical work because the weight's a little bit lighter and the reps are greater. The hypertrophy and acclimation work or accumulation work sets us up to do really well in our strength blocks before we then peak for the meet. This bigger picture periodization is important to understand as volume decreases and specificity increases over time before we get into the details. In our follow-up videos, we'll then go into hypertrophy, strength, and peaking, but today we're going to talk about this first one. So the basic characteristics of an accumulation phase is that we are going to be, in large part, recovering from this peak block. So after your meet, maybe just take a week off from the gym. Don't even go in. You're awarded and you deserve that week off. But when you get back in the gym, we're gonna do it a little less frequently than we were in the gym for the peak. We're gonna be in 2 to 4 days a week, and we're gonna make sure that we are training 2 to 4 weeks in this block. So it's not going to last incredibly long, a month at most. In the days that you're not training, you're just putting in extra time recovering. Whereas here, later on, we're gonna be putting in a lot more frequency in the gym and honing in on the tiny details before a competition. But again, here, this is going to be high volume in those 2 to 4 weeks of training, 2 to 4 days a week, with a lot of time under tension. Let me go more into this. We might have anywhere between 8 to 20 reps, okay? You had no eccentric loading of the muscle, next to 0 eccentric loading of the muscle when you're closest to competition, because it's from the floor, one speed up, where what we can do is we can use this volume to hone in on technique and improve eccentric loading, or rather, reap the benefits of eccentric loading, which will keep us healthy in this phase. Not only do we want to keep the reps high, have this idea of slow lowerings and then quick up. So for instance, this could be a 2-0-X1, where you're lowering for 2 seconds and then exploding up to keep yourself feeling healthy versus the concentric only or near concentric only phase in the peak. We're also going to have a lot of these exercises be loaded unilaterally. You might do some exercises that aren't commonly featured in the peaking block that have high specificity. Again, the specificity is rather low in this block. We might have things like lunges. Your presses might take the form of doing it one side at a time. Same with different type of row or pull variations, dumbbells, kettlebells, those type of implements can be really helpful here. As for cardio, if you have a really good base of cardio, it might be extra time spent in the gym that you don't really need, that you could otherwise be using to still recover from your previous meet. Let's just say that if you had no cardio and you struggled to follow yourself, this could be a really good time to get that cardio in. So, good aerobic foundation, you played a lot of sports as a kid, you don't have any issues following yourself, don't really do as much cardio. Rest up on these non-training days. If you suck at cardio and suck at breathing and you can barely follow yourself for your second clean and jerk attempt, well, let's just make sure we're putting in some low intensity aerobic exercise to help you recover and begin to build that base, right? We're not going to be going for longer walks or bikes or rows in this peak phase. We're doing that out here. So, considering the specific details, as we now better understand the basic, we want to take this time to work on technical improvements. Each cycle should have a reflection period. And competition really sheds insight into how not just this whole cycle went, but how we did in competition and where things maybe broke down. Mental training, even discussions around how to prepare mentally can go into this specific phase. But as for our physical considerations, we can put light technique improvements here and experimentations based on the reflections of the cycle. So if you have an athlete in their developmental stages and they're considering trying out the power jerk versus the split jerk, that can go here. If there's something funky in the snatch that you've been playing around with for a while, but you didn't really have the time during the peak block because the weights were so high, we would take care of that here as well. As for snatch and clean and jerk derivatives, we will be training the foundations of the movements involved in weightlifting because, again, specificity is low. So we might do things like a push press, a snatch deadlift, a clean deadlift, a squat, all of these for a high volume. Don't think that we're doing 20 snatches or 20 cleans. It's not CrossFit in this video, it's weightlifting, though we'll get to the CrossFit later. These derivatives will set the foundation for a really good technical base, and it will also allow you to just get in this volume and time under tension. Additionally, and ideally, first, we would want a balance of our frequency of squatting motions down and pulling motions up, perhaps even pressing overhead. We'd want to be doing those in a healthy mix because weightlifting features a healthy mix and a balanced mix of pulling off the ground, squatting, and pushing or catching overhead. But some of us might have specific exercise weaknesses, and we can link those in the show notes. We'll show you what these ideal ratios would be versus, say, a back squat and a front squat, snatch and clean deadlifts relative to one another and to one's total. And we can also consider muscular weaknesses that are a little more obvious than numbers. Say you have a hard time maintaining a good posture when you look at the videos of your meet, and that when you pulled the heavy weight off the ground, it was the posture that you had coming off the floor that led to the miss. Or perhaps it was your legs and you were inclined forward in your squat. These muscular weaknesses can instruct where to focus your energy before you have to get specific down the road. So as we peel back and really tie things together, we want to make sure that we are restoring mentally and physically from the energy put into the meet. Less days of training per week, and this will be about a month's period. We're bringing the volume up where previously it was very low. We're going to make sure that with this very bilateral sport, in fact it's singularly a bilateral sport, we're introducing to the body some unilateral loading in case you have any aches and pains along the chain. We can begin to even those out. We might even get some cardio in. We're going to focus on light technique work while training the volume with the derivatives of the lifts, but not snatch and clean and jerk from the floor. We're going to brush up on some weaknesses, and we're going to make sure that we have a really good plan going forward, but we have this foundation of work here. That is high in volume, low in specificity. So let us know what you think, comment below, and our next video will be on hypertrophy for weightlifting. Thanks, guys.